You're listening to Delay of Game on 90.3 KRNU and streaming on the web at krnu.unl.edu.
Hey, surprise, America! It's another podcast, and we welcome you into the Delay of Game podcast here on this Thursday, December the 18th. The day after, again, it's how many times have we had that? I have no idea. Ryan Swanigan with you here as I am joined not by Michael Snow, not by Cody Broder, but the very esteemed Jon Kipper.
What's up, Ryan?
Just like the old days, buddy.
Just like the old days.
Right here in this wonderful podcast. And so we welcome you in. Of course, yesterday, we're here mainly because it's not like there was any major news of sorts that took place. I don't know. There was Bo Pelini who got hired. Bo Pelini who ranted, not really ranted, but had some choice words to say. And then there's the athletic director at Pitt, and we're going to get all three of those. First,
Bo just won't go away, will he?
2003 called, and they want their coaching staff back. But yeah, let's start with event number one, which is Bo Pelini being hired at Youngstown State officially, and he had an interesting press conference at that. I don't have the transcripts in front of me here, but basically kind of called out the athletic department, third floor, Shawn Eichorst, and said that he didn't have any support behind him per se in his introductory press conference over there, and that was event number one that took place. Quite fun.
Bo's when you have a 9-10 win season every year in Nebraska, he's gonna have plenty of offers on the table. So with him getting the Youngstown State gig, it's kind of actually a little below him. I mean, he obviously took it because that's his hometown. He has a lot of connections with Youngstown State. I'm sure he likes the fact that Jim Tressel's the AD there because very, very different type of AD than Shawn Eichorst. Shawn Eichorst, a lawyer, very corporate type AD, kind of the new age AD. Jim Tressel kind of brings you back to the Bob Devaney days. You look at Wisconsin with Barry Alvarez. That's kind of what you get with the Tressel. Now, he's a little more professor-like than an Alvarez or a Devaney, but he still has that head coach mentality, and I think he likes that, having that type of guy as a boss, and I think that's one huge thing that swayed him. But he could have done a lot of different things. He could have been defensive coordinator at a big-time place. I'm pretty sure Spurrier asked him to be defensive coordinator at South Carolina, and he said no. In his little rant, which we'll get into, he did say he had a couple of job offers. I want to say defensive coordinator for South Carolina was one of them. This is also a guy that I've said a few times, if he just waited it out, maybe this is what he's going to do and still could do, but he could just try to wait for a job that's good, kind of at Nebraska's prestige. I've mentioned Iowa before, and not Iowa State, a little below Nebraska, but still a decent job. He could wait out for something like that because when you do that well, you're going to find a head coaching gig somewhere, but yeah, I mean, Youngstown State, it all makes sense, and we're going to get into this when we get into his talk to the players, but I don't exactly know what he means by support because he clearly has fan support, but he's looking at, like you said, the third floor, the athletic directors, the administrators there. We're not involved in the day-to-day at the athletic department, so we don't exactly know what support, not support means. They're clearly not pulling away money from the football team. I think it was more just they weren't reassuring Bo. They weren't reassuring the assistant coaches that they were coming back, clearly because they weren't sure. And then they definitely were sure that they're not coming back. And so, yeah, I like the fact that Bo got the Youngstown State job. I think that fits him well. I think he's going to do well there. You got to remember with Youngstown State, some people just thought this is a cushy gig where he can go 7-5 every year. They just fired the coach, so went 7 wins every year. So this is a team that wants to be in that D2 style playoff every year. They're a college football blue blood of that particular division. So clearly Bo wants to go there, kind of right the ship, but I think he has plenty of chances after that to potentially move on, or who knows, maybe he'll be there for 30 years. It's really hard to get a read on this guy, quite frankly.
Yeah, Bo Pelini, in his introductory press conference yesterday, saying Pelini called Jim Tressel a president who understands football, who's going to support me, something I don't know if I've ever had, kind of implying that he wasn't supported here at Nebraska.
But does that imply he wasn't supported at LSU, at Oklahoma, too? I mean,
I don't know.
When he was with the Packers, did the GM there not support him? I guess I think at this point it's a little bit petty that he's just making every little excuse he can why it didn't work, and obviously the key word is support. But again, Ryan, do you have any read on what that means?
Not really. It's just like it.
Other than the fact that when he criticizes Eichorst, he's saying Eichorst isn't with the players all the time, but I don't know if that's not supporting the coaching staff when you do that. Does that mean those guys don't support the softball team either, or they don't support the rifle team or the swim team?
It's tough to
understand. Like I said, we're not involved. Maybe he does have a legitimate gripe with the athletic department, but I can't interpret it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to. So that happened yesterday morning. Given some time, some time passed, and then about, I don't know what, 3 o'clock around there, yesterday afternoon, then the Omaha World Herald, I guess, if you want to look at it this way, quote unquote, responded to Bo's phrases yesterday morning at his introductory press conference at Youngstown State, and the transcript of Bo Pelini's meeting with the players at Lincoln North Star High School was released. And needless to say, once again, it was another situation where, oh no, Twitter might break because Nebraska and Bo Pelini are, they're starting the trend once again. And I'm not going to read much of this at all. There is so much that's on here, but I want to say, and later yesterday evening, the official audio was released. And if you listen to the full-on audio, it kind of comes across a little bit better than, at least in my opinion, than the actual transcript, because, you can read that and you can interpret that in your own way. But when you hear Bo Pelini actually say all of this stuff, it sounds much calmer, less, I guess, rant-like. There's not that heavy punch. It's not as big of a punch made by Bo Pelini than you would when you're just reading all of this stuff off. Of course, to summarize it up, he basically called out the athletic director, Shawn Eichorst, and Harvey Perlman, the chancellor of the University of Nebraska. He continually, here's my thing that I have a question about, is he continually referred to as Kaz. Now, I haven't picked up on who Kaz is.
Defensive line coach, Kaczynski.
Rick Kaczynski. Okay, fair enough. That's what I thought, but I wasn't full on for sure. I had heard it before. But anyways, so he continues to mention Rick Kaczynski, who was apparently there at this meeting as well. Just, continuing on to address the players and told them basically how it went down between him and Eichorst in that meeting, that he was, thinking about his family first and the players first and telling them not to leave, basically. If you're going to stick it out, you stick it out. If you leave, you leave. Give the new guy a chance. He also said that. It's a very, very long transcript. The audio recording is about 30 minutes. It's really some interesting stuff to hear. In addition, some football player has a Superman ringtone that goes off 4 times in this one too, so that kind of throws some humor into it, along with a couple of jokes pulled by Pelini that some people are like, oh my gosh. So, Jon Kipper, your thoughts on this whole wonderful transcript that took place?
Well, the analogy that I saw Scott Shanley and other people give, I don't agree with it, but it's essentially, it's like a mom and dad getting a divorce, the kid stays with the mom, and the dad trashing on the mom to the kid. I don't think that's accurate because, first of all, this isn't that type of situation. It's not like Eichorst and Bo were married, split up, and now Eichorst gets the team. Eichorst doesn't have any relationship with the team. Clearly, he doesn't have any relationship with the team. Mm-hmm. So it's not like now all these players, he doesn't work with them in the day-to-day, so I don't know if it's the same thing. It's not really a true analogy. It's an easy way to look at it, but I don't think it's an accurate way to look at it. Clearly, Eichorst was not the guy that hired Bo Pelini, and I don't think if Eichorst was in the position in 2007, he would have hired Bo Pelini. Therefore, they never really got along. They didn't see eye to eye. Bo, much more old school. Eichorst, much more new school. and their personalities just didn't seem to fit. And it was kind of inevitable when Bo went down. He's going to try to make some excuses. I mean, everyone makes some excuses when they get fired in situations like this. And I think the players, honest to God, wanted Bo to tell them why he thinks they got fired. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Bo giving his opinion. Now, did he have to be so blunt? I don't care if he uses cuss words. People are all up in arms about that. Ryan, you know me. If you cuss a little bit, it's not going to bother me whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fact, I mean, but he used very, very vulgar language to describe this guy that still does hold some sway over these kids, so I don't love that. What I don't love also is the fact, I was talking to Ford about this either, you're not really giving the new guy a chance. You're telling the players, give the new guy a chance, but you're saying the guy that's hiring this guy is awful. He doesn't like you guys. He doesn't care about you guys. He wanted you guys to lose to Iowa. But, hey, give the guy that he hires a chance. I don't love that. And he's kind of telling them, he's not telling them to transfer. I mean, he says a million times, do what you want, I'll support you. But he's kind of saying you don't have to stick around here by any means. Like, I'm gone, so it's up to you. And he didn't really keep in remembrance the fact that a lot of these players come to Nebraska to go to Nebraska.
Yeah.
They didn't come to the University of Bo Pelini. So I think that did get to me a little bit. And as I initially saw it, I didn't see much problem with it. I kind of just giggled, like, yeah, that's Bo. That's the guy we hired in 2007. That's the guy we fired in 2014. We knew what he was. We knew he did this against Ohio State. We knew he wasn't too big on the media. I mean, this wasn't shocking. I mean, it was interesting, and it was surprising a little, just that how in-depth he got into criticizing Eichorst. Because when we heard about this meeting, we just thought it was kind of had a send-off, had a big motivational speech. And I will say, after the Eichorst pot shots, it's actually a very good speech. It's a very influential speech, and you could see so much why players love this guy. He loves the crap out of his players. And I mean, I think that's not getting enough sway because when you call Eichorst the things Bo called him, that's going to get the headlines more than telling the players, I don't care what time you called, anytime, just talk to me. I'll help you out. The question becomes with me. He criticizes Eichorst for not really having a relationship with players, really not having a relationship with coaches. I think I think there are some legitimate gripes with Eichorst. I think most athletic directors, I've talked to a few people I know that aren't Nebraska fans. One of them likes Florida, another one likes North Carolina. They said they see their AD at everything in their locker rooms, always talking to coaches. Eichorst doesn't do that, and he obviously does it on purpose. I don't know if he tries to not forge a relationship with his coaches, so it's easier to part ways. It's easier to see him with a lens. But I think he does need to do a better job because I think that is part of his job is to getting to know the coaches a little bit, getting to know the players a little bit. I don't know if you have to know every little thing about the players, but as athletic director, you should probably have some relationship. I mean, this is like the first time he's ever talked to him. Also, he said, I heard that meeting with Eichorst didn't go well to the players. Eichorst, you saw this in the press conference too. He does tend to talk very corporate. He tends to give that corporate mumbo jumbo where he really doesn't say anything. And that speech has perennially always bothered me. I work at the rec center, when people at the rec use it, I just turn, I don't pay attention. It's just nothing to me because it's not genuine. I think Eichorst doesn't come across that way. I think that's a legitimate gripe on him too. And he has a job where you have to be very personable. And so I don't love that. Then the question became, well, this guy is, the athletic department's response was very frank and pretty much said, this is why we fired him. This gives us validation, quite frankly. Clearly the athletic department's looking for validation. Because this was not a firing in which everyone agreed with. This was a firing that had some controversy. And so if they now get a chance to be like, look, this is why we did it, they're going to jump all over that.
Oh, yeah.
So I get that, but then the question became among some people, well, this is why the guy shouldn't lead young men. This guy shouldn't lead any part of the institution. All they heard were the 4 paragraphs where he criticized Eichorst. They didn't read the rest of the part.
Oh, yeah.
Where he that's a leader right there. Some of the stuff the others said. The players love the guy. He made them a better person. And so I'm not going to say this guy shouldn't lead young men and he should be fired from Youngstown State and he should probably just go work in the NFL somewhere. I find that a little bit ridiculous and people overreacting to this a little bit. Take a step back. Maybe try to read the whole thing. I guarantee, Ryan, the people that said that, didn't read the whole thing. They read the story explaining the ridiculous things Bo said. Also with the media shots and pretty much saying, I haven't read any of that. I don't want to get dumber. I'm already dumb enough type thing.
There was so much, by the way, from this press conference.
Oh, there's just so much to take from it. I'm just kind of going down the line.
Hey, that's fine. That's fine.
With the media shots, he didn't read them, and a lot of these media people did mention the players. They did mention the fact that I don't know how this is going to affect them, and so the environment he created at Nebraska was just such us against the world to an unhealthy standpoint. The media in Nebraska are not against the Husker players. I promise. I promise you. He might not admit this, or maybe he would. Dirk Chatelain wants Nebraska to win a national title. That only gains him more notoriety. That makes his job more fun. So he doesn't want these players, these coaches to fail. I don't know why you build that facade, because then you leave yourself vulnerable to you getting yourself criticized easier. And then, yes, it does become that. Then it does become the media versus Bo when you're calling out guys in press conferences. I mean, like I said, with kind of these vulgar things Bo said, this is the Bo we've always had. He creates these kind of things, and so why are we surprised when he does it in his final talk to the players? But in the end, I still like Bo. I don't have anything against him. I mean, this didn't change my opinion on him of any means.
It should have been the same thing, just like with the I think like the day after the UCLA loss and the tapes of him calling out the fans came out. That's the exact same thing. This is just basically it's like. Gosh, I don't know what, like 25 minutes longer, basically? That's what this is. So, if you didn't expect this to come from Bo Pelini, come on, you had to have a little bit of an idea that, when the players are tweeting out saying, Coach told us how it is and stuff, you kind of figured
it was something.
He went after Shawn Eichorst a little bit, and this is, of course, now what we're seeing in the full 30-minute-long transcript. That's probably how long it took me to read this thing.
Well, Ryan, of course, avoided the players, for as long as he's been there. God knows he's avoiding them now.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
After this, players, the way they think about him, they don't like him. I won't say he doesn't like them, but, he doesn't want anything to do with them, clearly. He's going to stay in his office.
See, and this is the thing that one of the multiple things that bothers me is now there's this rift that's created. And now basically the only way to solve this is to start Mike Riley right now. That's one of the things that I see. I think John Bishop said this last night. The only way that you basically have to do the troops. Yeah, you have to do damage control, and Mike Riley has to go in right now. But that's obviously not going to happen. But essentially, if that's how you fix this whole entire situation. Thankfully, Mike Riley is already here. We're still not looking for a head coach.
See, that would be tougher.
That would be the problem, is now if this is out and Mike Riley isn't hired, Mike Riley might not come here. He might, oh boy, they're having trouble in Nebraska. I'm going to retire here at Oregon State. I've got less issues here than there would be there. But that's not the case. That's not the situation. The current situation is Mike Riley is here. And like I said, I think the best thing that needs to happen is that he needs to grab the reins of this football program right now, which won't happen. But I think if it did,
I won't say it won't.
If it did, it would be a lot
better. I know
better.
Right now he's been focusing on recruiting. I'm pretty sure that's over for a month. I'm pretty sure that deadline has passed now. And so now he can. I am almost sure. I think it was December 15th.
Yeah, you're right.
Was the last day. And so I know right now he's focusing on finishing up his coaching staff. Mm-hmm. Once he does that, I think that's when he's going to do damage control a little bit.
Yeah.
Because,
you have to at this point.
Yeah. Going back to Eichorst a little bit. Because he builds himself as a non-personable fella, as a very corporate fella, he has to make these right hires because he's not building the personal relationships. Obviously Harvey is his boy, and maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe he has a lot of leeway here. If Riley firing fails, just like any big-time school with hiring the football coach, kind of like a GM hiring a head coach in the NFL, if you fail, if you mess up this big one, you're in big trouble. Eichorst just doesn't help himself by the fact that if he messes up this Riley hire, if Riley just isn't the guy we think he is, and he kind of has the same record as he does at Oregon State here, Eichorst is gone too. Because, he doesn't help himself by not building relationships and just kind of building an armada of people around him, just kind of protecting him from everything. Mm-hmm. At some point, if he doesn't do well, that's going to break. That's going to fall apart. He doesn't have that support throughout the athletic department. To some extent, I don't know if you remember when Pederson got fired, a lot of news stories came out. Oh, finally, we have a free athletic department. It's not locked in. It's not so tight, not so secure, not so just keep your mouth shut type environment.
I remember that.
Osborne came in and it was much more loose. You kind of get the idea. It's back to being tight again. It's back to being like, hey, don't do too much. Don't say the wrong thing to this guy or you're going to be canned.
Yep.
I don't love that. If he's able to make the right hiring, none of this affects the fact that maybe he's really good at hiring coaches. Maybe he has a fantastic eye for this. As a Nebraska fan, I hope to God he does.
Yeah.
Because I don't love the other things, the other ways he builds an athletic department, how he does it. And he learned from Barry Alvarez, supposedly. I don't get the idea this is how Wisconsin is run. So obviously,
well, they're having their own football troubles as it is.
Clearly,
two coaches.
So maybe he learned
2 years
from Alvarez's mistakes. Who knows? Maybe he realizes this is not how you do it. Being so blunt, like I said, Alvarez is the very old school type approach. Eichorst is very different from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying this Riley move better work out for Eichorst now because I think, regardless of what you want to say about Bo and if he should have said it or not said it, and it's a little petty and it's a little selfish, blah blah blah. There are legitimate concerns about Eichorst right now about him building this athletic department to be such a tight-knit group and no one can really do much or else, and like we go back to the support thing. I don't know what that means, but maybe Eichorst could help himself from these type of situations if he just talked to his coaches more.
Yeah.
I mean, it would seem like a legitimate thing to do.
Now, granted, I want to say this for the record because I have seen him a couple of times at basketball games. No, not when he's supposed to be making appearance because they're honoring somebody.
Absolutely.
I have seen him a couple of times. I saw him at the Indiana game specifically last year for men's basketball. I saw him at a Husker softball game.
I was going to say, he's at softball, he's at volleyball, he's at soccer. He goes to everything. But he keeps his distance. So clearly
we tried to invite him on the KRNU broadcast of a softball game last year, or maybe it was his first year, and he just like, hey, what's up? Yeah, and didn't
have any interest.
I mean, he acknowledged us, but he didn't ever come into the booth, and we never had him on air. Obviously, if we did, it would have been shared everywhere. But yeah, he just kind of stood in the Husker Vision booth and didn't come in at all.
So I mean, he has. I think that's when Bo talked about their meeting. When Bo said, "I don't think you support us," I disagree. He supports his team. And then we keep going back to I don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah, because
does it mean you're just in attendance? Does it mean you have to know the players? I don't know.
From the sound of things, it sounds like Shawn Eichorst, as Bo said, and as you said, he's not in the locker room. He doesn't have a real connection. He didn't have a real connection with Bo Pelini. He didn't have a connection with any of the players. Maybe Amir Abdullah, because Amir Abdullah, he was this close to being a Heisman finalist. But other than that, it sounds like there is just basically there's nothing that there was nothing there between Bo Pelini, his staff, the players, the majority of the players, and Shawn Eichorst.
What I want to know is if other Husker coaches feel this way. Because almost nearly all of the Husker coaches, other than like the rifle coach, were not hired by Eichorst. So maybe they don't feel that connection as well. Maybe
Miles, Darren Erstad.
Maybe they can be like, yeah, Bo, we agree. I mean, they're not going to speak out on it by any means.
Of course not.
But maybe this is a sentiment shared by many of the Husker coaches. Thing is, though, I mean, if you're doing well, Connie Yorie doesn't have to worry about her job security.
Oh, no.
Nor does Tim Miles. Really, nor does Darren Erstad. All those big guns. John Cook either.
Rhonda Revelle.
None of them, because they're all very successful. Even Bo is pretty successful, but it's just different standards, obviously, with the football program. So, I mean, I don't know if they feel that same sentiment because they're not worried about being fired, but maybe they also don't like the fact that Eichorst isn't as supportive as past ADs. Osborne was at everything, and he was also in locker rooms, but he was a coach. He was a different type of AD, and you're going to get someone different. But I said I was talking to a Florida fan. He said Foley, I believe his name's Jeremy Foley, is in the locker room after every Florida game, win or loss. He's at softball games. He's always talking to coaches, players. Maybe that's just how one man does his job, but that seems to me what athletic directors are supposed to do.
Yeah, clearly.
I just wait. Eichorst would help himself out so much, and he would shed so much criticism if he just put himself out there more. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to make a response every time someone's criticizing a coach saying, yes, I'm going to fire him. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. You don't even have to necessarily make all these public statements. But just be out there publicly, be seen with the team. I think that would go a huge ways in helping his job security.
Yeah, definitely. Getting back to this transcript and this audio, that raises a lot of questions mainly for me, and I don't know about you. I have my own thoughts, but honestly, the strange thing to me is what this was released after Bo Pelini gets hired at Youngstown State. Has his comments there by the Omaha World Herald. From listening to the recording, it sounds like the recording was made by a football player because it's pretty close to Bo Pelini. It's in the Lincoln North Star Auditorium, which I don't know if you've been there. I would be. Yeah, it's not that big.
Yeah.
It's not small, like really small, but it's pretty decent sized. Not too big. There's going to be an echo, but it sounds like the recording is on a football player's phone or some sort of recording device. But the point I'm making is it sounds like it comes from a football player who's in the first, I don't know, like 2, 3, 4 rows. The question that I have is if big if here, if it's a football player who's recording this, how in the world did the Omaha World Herald get it, or who got it and gave it to the World Herald? I mean, that's what I want to know. It's kind of like with this, with Bo Pelini's, recording of going after the fans. Somebody at the Husker, somebody at the Husker Sports Network had to have had that recording somewhere and released it to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same exact question I have here. And again, the only people who were in there, football players, Rick Jasinski, I don't know how many other coaches were there, and Bo Pelini. I don't know. Maybe there was a Lincoln North Star personnel guy that was there, or a regent, but it sounds like the recording is done from a football player, and I just want to know, did the World Herald, if they thought that there could be a final meeting with Bo, contact a football? I'm starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but did they contact a football player, say, hey, if there's a meeting, would you record it and get it to us, and we'll give you some sort of cash consideration, some type of gift, something like that? Is that possible? Because it seems like the only reason that the World Herald could get this is if they made a deal with a football player. I don't know if that's possible.
I think my interpretation is this. Bo Pelini leads a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
Most, I would say maybe 99% of the players like Bo Pelini. 2 or 3 maybe don't. Maybe 2 or 3 are walk-ons that would have came here regardless. They didn't like the, cut of Bo's jib. Didn't necessarily, maybe they thought Bo treated them unfairly. There's all sorts of reasons why you may not like Bo for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're just like, let's see what he has to say here. Record it. And then, this is kind of incriminating. Hey, World Herald, you want to know this? Or maybe just like they want to be like, this is going to be a really good speech. Because Bo's notorious for giving very good pregame speeches.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they're just like, this is going to be a hell of a speech. And so they record it. And then after, they're like, God, I did not think he'd take that many shots at Eichorst. Maybe people want to know this. I don't know. I don't know if the media would have paid him necessarily. I'm not looking at that as much. I'm just thinking it took one person in that room, and who knows, maybe it was a janitor. Maybe somebody knew this was going to happen, put a phone under a bleacher, and walked away. There's so many possible situations because this wasn't in the athletic department. If Bo would have held this in the athletic department, it would have been less likely for someone to sneak around and do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that this was held in a high school, there's always some people walking around in high school. Day or night, there's going to be people there. Teachers, janitors, what have you. And so, like I said, all it takes is to turn your iPhone on, record, put it in a spot. I'm pretty sure Bo was on a mic because it was such a big room.
Really?
That's the way I got it. And he would have to yell quite a bit if he wasn't. So, a big auditorium like that, I would guess he was on just some type of mic situation. And in that sense, it would record pretty easily.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I just think someone that necessarily wasn't a Bo loyalist got it, whether it be someone outside the football program or someone just in the football program that didn't particularly love Bo.
Yeah.
felt it was interesting and released it. Maybe World Herald was even being nice. Maybe they got this the day after and was like, let's wait till Bo gets a job so it doesn't hurt his job status, and then release it. Because it seemed very placed right after Bo had that press conference.
Yeah, it took a couple of hours
It would be very hard for Youngstown State not to keep him, to get rid of him, quite frankly, now. And so that's when they're like, okay, now let's release this because we think it's newsworthy. People want to know.
Yeah, fair enough. Very, very, just to me, the whole entire situation kind of weird, and I know from Twitter, it just, to me, it comes across as a little bit like disrespectful because I thought this was supposed to be a meeting, kept between the players and Bo, their last meeting with to them, their father figure.
And you know what? If he didn't have the shots at Eichorst, I would have been more kind of on that side of things. If it just would have been a, hey, I love you guys type speech, then yeah, maybe just shut up. Maybe just keep that in between. But the fact that he went in so much depth on why he thinks he got fired with Eichorst.
Yeah.
I understand why I was released. I mean, I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday too. Highest paid employee in Nebraska. You're held to different standards. And so when you get this type of situation and it's released, you can't be that mad about it.
Yeah.
Like, people are, all eyes, all ears are on you.
Let's just hope that Mike Riley can do damage control at this point. Absolutely. If you're a Nebraska fan, because we now can officially assume that this whole situation has gone down into the dumpster and time to revive it. Finally, going back to 2003, as I said, as our station manager Ford Clark continues to be the strange person that he is.
Perennially a professional.
We still love him because, he's the one who's currently in charge right now, as Rick Alloway won't
scary
be back.
Thought, right?
Yeah, Rick Alloway won't be back until January. That is a scary thought. But anyways, as I said, going back to 2003, connecting with Bo Pelini and firings and athletic directors. And I think I saw a tweet somewhere on Twitter yesterday that Frank Solich somewhere is sitting and shaking his head regarding the whole Bo Pelini situation. Steve Pederson got fired at Pitt yesterday, late evening. I think it was around 5 or so, 6 Eastern, somewhere around there. And once again, it just was a culmination of things yesterday for Nebraska. Bo Pelini, Shawn Eichorst's name, of course, attached with that, and then Steve Pederson gets fired. I mean, the only thing we're missing now is something regarding Frank Solich. I mean, we don't want him to die or anything, but some sort of headline with Frank Solich is all we're missing. And we've got 2003 completed 11 years later.
First of all, quick story time with Steve Pederson.
Oh, yeah.
I was at a Husker baseball game once when I was probably 10, 11, that age-ish. And someone around me, it was like, because it's when Husker baseball was popping. A lot of people there. Steve Pederson was on the concourse walking, and someone around me that was my age yelled, "Hey, Steve Pederson, let's kill him," and ran away. His wife was with him. Pederson's wife was with him. Looked at me, thought it was me, and chased me around Haymarket Park, hitting me. True story, I swear to God.
Oh, wow.
So I have a... I'm not a big fan of Steve Pederson's wife.
Funny.
I thought it was too. Of course this crap happens to me. So just the whole time going, "Lady, it's not me. It was this other guy." Sure. You just need it was a bizarre situation. I still think it's weird as heck. But anyway.
Good thing you didn't run into Barry Alvarez's wife in Wisconsin.
Right? God knows what would happen. Anyway.
Oh, man.
I don't know. With this Pederson thing, I mean, people are really celebrating this. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I think what my indications are, what I saw on Twitter was Chris was going to Wisconsin within probably the past week. Most people knew it. Pederson had a good idea, was already looking at candidates. Pittsburgh Athletic Department didn't necessarily like the candidates Pederson was choosing, whoever that may be.
Sounds familiar.
Right? And so they decided, I don't think he was on the best of terms at Pittsburgh anyway. That might have kind of been the last straw. They might have just been like, let's get the right guy in here. Because let's remember with these football coaches Pittsburgh's hired. They hired Haywood from Miami of Ohio, which ended up having, I think he had an assault charge like a month after hiring. He hired Todd Graham, who a year later went to Arizona State. He hired, I think that was it. And then he hired Chris, who stayed for a few years, did okay, and then left. So we didn't have a great track record of hiring coaches at Pitt. Therefore, they didn't really want to give him another chance. What's funny was that Todd Graham hiring was actually pretty good hiring. He obviously just can't retain him. Maybe he doesn't. I mean, we've talked about this with Eichorst, and we talked about this with what Pederson did when he was here. He doesn't necessarily build the most fun work environment. It's a very uptight work environment. Maybe that's why these coaches want to leave when they get their chance. Graham with Arizona State, Chris with Wisconsin. Therefore, they didn't like him running the program that way, decided to make a move. I don't know how else you look at it.
Trying to quickly look up.
I'm pretty sure it's Haywood, Graham, Chris are their last 3 coaches, I want to say, unless I'm forgetting one.
Well, as I slowly get there, no, I'm having trouble finding it here. But anyways, I just thought it was pretty funny that that it ends up happening this way. Going back, yeah, I'm not finding much here, but yeah, just interesting to see that Steve Pederson gets fired and everything breaks the way it did all in basically 1 day. Dave Wanstead was there from 2005 to 2010. And then he got
fired. Then they hired Haywood.
Yeah, Mike Haywood. Then Todd Graham, 2011. Paul Christ, and now it's obviously not going to be Bo Pelini and Steve Pederson. That's the second Bo Pelini dream that Husker fans have had. That's ended up dying.
I think Billy C got a call in Dallas.
Maybe that was the reason why Pitt said, "Oh, maybe we just need to fire Steve Pederson instead." So that's, of course, what happened. Now the question is, does the Pederson Arena stick around and keep its name?
Oh, I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I
don't know.
You know,
most of the time when you get an arena named after you, don't get fired from that very place.
Mm-hmm.
What did he do so good there that they gave him the job back and then named an arena? I mean, he hired Jamie Dixon as b-ball coach, and that was a good move.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I don't think he was a tremendous athletic director there. Maybe I'm missing a big hiring, but...
Well, the Pederson Event Center, excuse me, but still, I mean, whatever it is.
Is that the Pederson with a T?
Yep, it is.
That's not him, Brian.
It's not him.
I mean, he's a D, so...
Oh, well, there we go.
So that's not after him,
That
thankfully.
kills that right there. Good deal.
That's why I'm here.
I guess that's why Husker fans just, they don't try to follow Pitt athletics because they'll get it mixed up with Pederson and Pederson. Oh, goodness. By the way, before we wrap up this podcast, you think Darren Erstad is kind of watching his back just a little bit with Shawn Eichorst? Because there are some similarities between Darren Erstad and Bo Pelini. But
I don't think Erstad's as blunt.
Erstad is more of a quiet guy. He's so concentrated on the players and baseball and all this other important
life. And there's just
life
so much less
stuff.
media scrutiny for the baseball team, and not as much expectations. I mean, you don't have to win. I think at some point he's going to be called to win the Big Ten, but I just think a lot less pressure being a baseball coach here as opposed to a football coach.
Yeah, of course, he did come close last year in that championship game against Ohio State.
2 years in a row.
Yeah, very, 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 very close. All right, that's going to do it for this edition here of this Delay of Game podcast, on Thursday, December the 18th. And as I said, no show for the next 3 times we're supposed to be on air. Jon Kipper joining me from the Monday afternoon forum. That is from 1 to 4. You still don't know when you're coming back, do you?
I want to have the same time, but it's up to Douglas. You know how he is.
Oh, Doug Lowry.
What are you going to do with him?
We move forward.
We move forward.
Just like Husker fans are trying to move forward.
I gotta study with him today, so I gotta go wake him up now.
Oh, that's
a treat.
Oh, I bet so. Big thanks, buddy. We'll catch you around later,
dude.
That's it for the Delay of Game podcast. We will Delay of Game will be back on the 29th. For now, for Jon Kipper, I'm Ryan Swanigan. You have been listening to the Delay of Game podcast. Delay of Game on 90.3 KRNU.